Hello again. I hope you'd enjoy the breakout groups, and it's for sure easy to communicate orally than just via a chat function. And if you were really lucky, you were also able to see some faces of the other participants. As you probably can imagine, it has been a little bit hectic behind the scenes, so we are a little bit late. But before we start with the flash reports, I'd like to remind you that you can post questions in the chat for the plenary discussion. Right now, I'm not sure how much time we will have for it, but it's no need to repost the questions that you posted yesterday because we kept them and we will address them to the extent that we can. So we start with the flashback reports, and remember, please, that you have 5 minutes each, and we will start with group number 1. And there was some trouble, so I'm not sure who's reporting back, whether it's Anna or whether it's Anna. Yes, so Anna, you have the floor, and this was on analytical methods.
Thank you very much. Can we have the presentation as well? Thank you. And next. So we're just going to report back from the 2 breakout groups. So, and I think I can do this together with Tony, who's the rapporteur on group number 2. So just a quick look at the survey results on knowledge gaps for analytical methods. We started off by having some discussion about how comprehensive this list was, which the participants on breakout group 1 agreed that it was quite comprehensive, added some comments that we would for sure add to the reports, and also made some interesting considerations about the need to not overemphasize the aspects regarding to definitions, with the risk of delaying and not addressing the right questions. Very much the feeling that the perfect might be the enemy of the good was the sentence used by our chair, which kind of I think made a good summary of some of the discussion we had, and also the need to concentrate on the questions to better define the analytics. What are we trying to achieve, and design our analytical methods throughout it. Tony, do you have anything else to add in here?
Thanks, Anna. Maybe just first of all, quickly to thank everybody who participated in the breakout group, who did a fantastic job. And of course, the chair, Douglas Gilliland, who you saw yesterday in the plenary session. We had quite a long discussion on the knowledge gaps at the beginning, although we'll present to you a little later here some additional knowledge gaps that were highlighted as a result of those discussions. But certainly we looked at things like agglomerates and aggregation, disaggregation in the organism, and how these things can be easily measured or practically measured, given the different techniques needed. But anyway, the gaps, as I said, we cover those in a separate slide later on. So I think it's fine at this point just to say that it was a very healthy discussion, and was the perfect platform to for the next part of the discussions, which was on the actions, on the research actions, and how to prioritize them.
Okay, can we have our next slide, please? And I apologize for not having thanked everybody in the group, and particularly to Peter for his excellent sharing of this session. We then went ahead thinking about our poll. So these were the actions that we had designed ahead of the session, of the breakout session, on possible actions to address the knowledge gaps identified. Next slide. And this was the results of the poll. We've combined in these slides the results of the 2 groups. And what we had was a lot of agreement on the first two activities, research activities, development of nomenclature, protocols, guidelines, reference material, and standards, including units. And the scores were very similar when we try to look at criteria for prioritization. So the first looking, would this be contributing to harmonized definitions? Would it contribute to hazard and exposure characterization? Would it be helpful? Third criteria, would it be helpful for EU monitoring programs? And a little bit on ongoing or planned research activities. So for the first research activity, we reached the same considerations and in the three criteria, and we agreed that this was in fact a priority research activity. The same for the second one on rapid methods for detection based on parameters relevant for hazard characterization. In there, of course, not so relevant for harmonized definitions, but critical for the other two aspects that we wanted to cover. Then for group one, we had analytical method comparison to select techniques for the developed standards. And we had quite a lot of the discussion if this was something that was relevant or critical, with some of the group thinking that, in fact, this was very critical, especially considering that it would be probably an alternative for some of the issues we face in terms of harmonization, development of reference materials. This could be an alternative and therefore quite relevant. I think you guys chose another one, right, Tony?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Anna. So the remaining one there at the bottom, the fourth action was the one that Breakout Group 2 opted for amongst the three top research actions. So applying techniques for the evaluation of both mass and particle number. And this was seen as really important right across the board. So both for the harmonized definitions, understanding of hazard exposure, and the EU monitoring programs. And actually, we had a really good mix in the group of experts, both from public and private sectors, and there was a lot of agreement on the technical issues, but also the practical hurdles as well, which kind of lead us onto the next part of the or the final slide where we see the follow-up actions that are needed.
Can you please move on to the next slide?
Okay, these were basically the knowledge gaps which we discussed earlier on in the breakout group. So as you can see there, I mentioned earlier about the aggregates, and so sonication was mentioned as a method to deal with this. Also, it was raised the need for so that yes, the diverse composition as well of the nanoparticles and the differences between the engineered materials and the ones that are broken down. And a key point which actually was discussed at length was the importance of the identification the quantification. So basically the quantification is more of a challenge at the moment than the identification of the particles. So these were the additional knowledge gaps that came from the breakout group 2.
Presentation disappeared. Okay, so not really much on additional knowledge gaps, but maybe making it more clear some of those knowledge gaps, like the importance of characterizing different plastics in the mixture, and also some refinement in terms of adding validating quantitative aspects in the characterization of mixtures from environment, food and feed. Next slide, please. You jumped one. Okay. No, fine. One more, please. Okay. So in terms of actions, really good ideas about how can we ensure the exchange, participation on the advisory board, priority development of list for research priority, stakeholders workshop, improve interaction with other non-EU activities, and a very interesting recommendation about developing structured database and share curated data. Next slide.
Thank you. So we came up with quite a long list of activities, some quite practical ones, and also some high level ones in terms of bringing organisations together in different fora. Training activities were mentioned, and how this has also been useful in the past. So especially trying to bring together the technicians from laboratories together with administrators to understand these the limitations, both in trying to identify and quantify the particles and how these can actually be controlled at an administrative level. Involve also administrators at scientific conferences, so improve the dialogue at that level. Another was to maximize the types of projects. So there are some clusters already of projects, but some of these could be broadened, or they could be expanded to go beyond just one or the other domain. Collaborations with ISO and DIN. It was mentioned in the discussion that already some methods are already afoot to try and come up with standards in the microplastics area. Large-scale research programs like the VAMES and Cost Action were also floated as already in somehow covering some of these aspects, but further focus on those could also reap benefits. We mentioned some these high-profile international events. EFSA has one called the RARA Conference, which brings together the funders from both a political level and together with researchers and risk assessors, risk managers. There's a similar type event at a global level, the GSRS. And then a key thing actually which came through, as I mentioned, we had a good representation of experts and technicians from industry, was a couple of ideas about how to make, since industry need to be involved in a lot of the kind of control afterwards. If there are risk management measures that come through at some point, then industry will have to implement them. That it was good to have this sense check with industry on the types of materials that are really being used by consumers, and also an idea for interlaboratory testing to make sure industry is involved in that, not just public sector. So thanks to everybody for those great ideas, by the way. So Anna, I don't hear you. I guess
Today
we've
is not
come to
my
the
day
end of
on
our
technical.
presentation.
I think so.
I guess we've come to the end of our presentation, so let's leave time for the others. And once again, thank everybody I thank everybody in Breakout Group 2, and in particular our chair, Douglas, who did a fantastic job.
Yeah, same for my group 1. Thank you to all.
Hello. Good morning. Hello. Good morning. It's me with Karen, and first of all, I would like to thank the two chairs of our breakout groups on exposure, Francesco and Birgit. Our groups were very well represented by a series of stakeholders, so quite active as well. So that's very, very nice. We have, that's not Karen. So we have started with the analysis of the knowledge